The Holy Quran is replete with verses frowning on LGBTQ acts, including same-sex marriages. My faith is, therefore, very strictly against the practice of homosexuality. Allah.
Welcome back on the AM show. We get into the big stories now, and Vice President, flag bearer of the MPP, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has finally come out delivering a strong position on LGBTQ at the Eid prayers. And he made his point pretty clearly that, and let me quote here, he says, no ifs or buts, no shades of gray. The Holy Quran is against this. But what do you think? We want this to be a proper engagement with you as well. Are you convinced? What do you think? Some say better late than never. Others say he is leading from behind. We'll be introducing our guests to you shortly, but Sweetie Abochi, initial reactions from the Vice President and what he had to say.
Well, I want to say both of these flag bearers have cited religious reasons for which they are declaring their stance against the bill. And I'm wondering... When
you say both, I mean, you're assuming...
Bawumia also said that he's against the bill, and so if he's voted into power, he will assent to the bill and make LGBTQ practices criminal.
Yes, but I was saying that when you say both, so the assumption is that the other one is Mahama? Is that...
Okay, so I mean Mahama and Bawumia.
Right.
I mean, they are the two flag bearers for the two major political parties, and they both citing religious reasons. Mahmoud Bawumia is saying his religion doesn't allow. Mahama is also saying the same thing. And my question is, or what's in my head this morning is, should we use religious reasons, or must religious, reasons influence political issues or social issues like LGBT?
So beyond religion.
Beyond religion. Yeah. What's the basis for all these brouhaha LGBTQ, and why is it taking so long for us to just close this docket and move on with
the chapter already?
It's been an impasse for a while, and I'm wondering at what point do we move forward? And Bawumia is saying that if he's voted into power, what stops him from influencing the president?
No, that's the interesting point, because he literally leads the MPP now, right? If this is your position, but of course he's not the president. He's not the one to whom...
Still drive a state?
If anything were to come, he's not the one who will sign off on it. It must be the president. And at the SONA, Mr. President said that the buck stops with him. But you see the positioning. You remember the Clerk of Parliament wrote back to the presidency that, okay, I've tried 3 times. You've rebuffed me. You say I shouldn't come. So let me know when I can come. It's so... I know what you mean.
On PM Express. Yeah, we'll bring in the guest shortly. On PM Express, saying that the president orchestrated the lawsuit himself. And we know that even before he mentioned the lawsuit, I mean, a day after he mentioned that there was a suit against the bill, it was a day before we actually saw the lawsuit. So, well, let's get into the conversation. We have Professor Kobby Mensah on the phone. He's a political marketer at University of Ghana Business School. Professor Kobby Mensah, thanks for joining the conversation. What are your initial thoughts on, the current status of this anti-LGBTQ plus bill on the back of what Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been saying during the Eid prayers in Kumasi?
Thank you very much for having me. Let me say hello to Benjamin.
Hi, Prof.
Hi. I think that, the country or the people actually take clues from leadership, all right? And that's why leadership is crucial. I mean, the word leadership means that all of us, there are some people who actually, leading us or ushering us to places. And so we take the national consciousness especially from what leaders say. And people would ask, why is it necessary for the leaders to actually, state their position? Firstly, the bill had actually, or the issue had been in Parliament, widely debated, and had become one of the key issues that currently we're discussing within the political discourse, all right? And so it is normal for people to expect the views of the leadership. And when I talk about leadership, I mean the political leadership, all right? There are other leaderships. So we expect the views of the leadership as in opposition and, the government or the party in power. or even the party itself. Now, clearly, the opposition had been unequivocal about their stand, i.e., the flag bearer of the NDC had come out to state unequivocally his position and has underpinned it with his faith. Now, the reason why they would actually align to faith is because when it comes to ethics, or when it comes to ethical conduct, when it comes to morality, when it comes to what we call law, for example, and I'm not a lawyer, by the way, quite a number of these things are actually drawn from religious beliefs. And so countries that do not have strong ethical stance on issues, they tend to lean towards their cultural backgrounds, their religious background, to glean their perspectives of what is moral and what is ethical, etc., from their backgrounds of culture and then, of course, of religion. So the opposition side, you can say that the case is closed, all right? Now, I think that the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, has two challenges. One, when the issue was raging and when everybody else was talking about it and were expecting leadership to actually voice their position, he never did. Now, the expectation of the people was that definitely Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who is a Muslim, and everybody knows the stance of Muslim on this particular issue, which himself, cited that the Quran definitely abhors it. And that's the position of the people. People knew, beforehand that certainly this is not something that, Dr. Bawumia would support LGBTQ. And so he would firmly support the bill. And that was expectation. But expectation itself would not take the issue away. They would want an explicit, proclamation from the vice president. But he lost the opportunity. Time is currency. And in communication, once the moment is right, that is when you have to make the statement. He lost that position. He made people create a lot of assumptions. And he complicated his issue by the president coming out to say that I would not actually assent to this particular bill. Then he was in a bad state because voicing it out would become contradictory to his government position, because the president embodies the government position. The president, to a very large extent, embodies the party's position. Now your president comes and says, I would not assent to this. He hasn't said that he supports LGBTQ. He hasn't said that, he actually wants LGBTQ. And of course, by extension, you can say that once the vice president, who is a Muslim, is likely to abhor it, is likely to not to support LGBT. Christians also don't support LGBTQ. But the president, having said that he will not assent to it, somehow put it in the position that perhaps he supported. And that makes Dr. Bawumia's position much more difficult, because if he comes out, he contradicts his government position, he contradicts the party position. If he doesn't, now the confusion is that does he or does he not? Because even the president, who is a Christian, and by extension Christians do not support LGBT, saying that I would not assent the bill. You see? So it now becomes very difficult. He now goes to give a speech and says that even from my religious background, it all shows that I would not support LGBT.
But Prof, just briefly, the president premised his decision, the president premised his decision on the Supreme Court case, stating that there were two cases there. And so for that reason, he would want to wait on the back of hindsight, what we saw in the e-levy. I'm sure he's saying, I've learned my lessons this time. I don't want to go down that route. What is your take on that? And secondly, quick point. You say he spoke too late. That is the vice president. When do you feel, as a political marketer, would have been the ideal time for him to have come out on this?
When everybody's mind was on this, currently it's buried. His position has been buried in the festivities, has been buried in the notion that, of course, he hadn't actually spoken. The issue is no longer, at the front burner of the conversation. People have moved on. Currently, we are discussing even the performance tracker. So his position now has been buried. Most people had gone with the idea that he hadn't spoken about it. I wonder how many people would really, get to know that Bawumia has spoken about this issue, because it was buried in the festivities. It had been buried in the performance tracker. So many issues had come up at the front burner that we are discussing. So that is a problem for him, and I'm sure that if he was to actually, sort of be on top of the issues in terms of his position, he's lost that position. All right. Now, if you take the precedent, of course, he actually premised his not signing based on a legal, perspective or based on a legal position. That is clear. But of course, we all knew that, because of a certain pronouncement from foreign powers, from so-called, development partners, etc., hinging it on a certain expectation, IMF, money coming in. That's why the president is actually saying he's not signing. So we don't see the legal perspective as the reasons why, but we see other forces as the reasons why he's not signing. So although he has expressly said it, I don't think that people are actually buying it. People are actually hinging it on the earlier conversations, which is IMF says don't sign it. Some big wigs, big business people, Richard Branson has said that don't sign it, etc. And I think that is the narrative, or that is the discourse that people are actually taking away, not the legal one.
Right. There's something you said that I just want to react to quickly. You said Christians don't support, but there's been a number of discourse that suggests that the Pope is blessing same-sex marriage. So not all Christians are against the bill. But let me bring in Dennis Miracles Abuaje, who is communications director for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's campaign team.
Maybe before we bring in Miracles Abuaje, I think it must be made clear the Pope hasn't said
you're Catholic.
That. No, it's not about being Catholic. I think we have to get that point correctly. The Pope has not said that he's going to bless same-sex marriages. He has said that in the context of going to church and, bless me. That is simply it. It doesn't have anything to relate to approving same-sex marriages, which is why you can't go anywhere and have a same-sex marriage as a Catholic. Let's make that clear before we move on.
And Ben, largely, if you look at the Christian faith, there's a certain liberal stance, within the Christian faith than the Muslim faith. It's something that is clear, all right? Quite a lot of, within the Christian fraternity, if you look at the Orthodox and if you look at the Charismatic and the Pentecostals, the continuum is a little bit stretched than within the Muslim faith. So I don't think that it is wrong to say that some Christians have some kind of soft leaning towards that than the Muslim faith. So clearly, people gave the vice president benefits of that from the beginning. I think what was left was for him to stand on that particular benefit of the doubt, to have an express position on that. And he failed to do that within the moment that he could have actually garnered the currency that I'm talking about.
Okay. Dennis Miracle Abuaje is joining us on phone. And my first question to you would be, how is Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's campaign team perceiving this ongoing LGBTQ, the lawsuits and the bill itself? How does Bawumia, the team, perceive this ongoing lawsuit and the bill?
Party, not just Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He belongs to a group beyond his own personal principles, which is against the LGBTQ, right? The group that he belongs to, which is a new patriotic party, has been quite clear and emphatic. We are a conservative party and we frown on LGBTQI. There is no doubt about that. It is not about anybody's pain or anybody's propaganda that will change it. We are a conservative party. LGBTQI is not one of the things that we share from it, and that is okay. Our members of parliament don't promote the prime bill in parliament. And again, that's the things why our members of parliament supported the party of the bill on the House. And so that must be established. Every other thing is just the usual political agenda and the usual political propaganda things where others always want to take advantage of some of these things.
Dennis, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Miracles? Yeah. I would suggest that maybe we don't label everything that differs from the opinion propaganda, but it's up to you to decide. But I'm just curious though. You say this is the party's overarching position and all of that, then my question is, why now? The VP waited all this while. This conversation, like Professor Mensah is saying, has gone on for so long. He's never spoken. Why now then?
Who's taken? Who gave the timeline? Who's taken? Who gave the timeline? Who set the timeline? If we had a timeline set from the beginning, then we can have that conversation. I mean, Professor Mensah, anybody listening knows it's not coming from an objective perspective. But who gave the timeline? Between the time...
Who is not coming from an objective perspective?
Professor Mensah.
Why?
There's no doubt about that.
Why?
Let's not go into that, but there's no doubt about that. But
I have to be fair to him.
No, I'm telling you.
He's on the other end. I can't just let you say that and move. Why do you say that?
No, his position, especially when it comes to issues of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and the MPP, it's there, public, it's there. Go to his tweet, it's public. There's no doubt about that. He himself is not denying that. So, I mean, that's a fact that he's not coming from an objective perspective when there are issues that have to do with the MPP and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. There's no doubt about that.
I see. I could go way back in time. And also fish out stuff where he's been very supportive of the MPP and even of the vice president, if you look at before the 2016 elections. But I'll leave him to defend himself. Just a quick follow-up, though.
Well, before
Pardon me.
He even spoke about both Mahama and Bawumia, so it was
Right.
not like just fixed on,
Okay, Dennis?
Go on.
Dennis, go on. You wanted to say something.
So nobody gave the timeline. Nobody said for us to say that it's time and so the bell is ringing. The fact of the matter is that the discussion on LGBTQI has not even ended, even beyond Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's statement. It hasn't ended. It's still a raging conversation. Let me also quickly correct a falsehood that was put out by Professor Mensah. The president has not said anywhere that he will not assent to the bill. He hasn't said it anywhere. There is no such record of the president saying he's not going to assent to any bill. He hasn't said it anywhere. And you should have actually pointed that to him as well.
I think the point he was making, Dennis, let's not do this. The point he was making was that when the president, met with the foreign missions and all of that, he said that on the back of what had come before the Supreme Court, though it would be a day after, he was going to wait for that. I think it's pretty clear that was what he was referring to, not to say that the president has said he would never or he would not assent to the bill. Or did you understand it differently?
It doesn't matter to me understand. That's what we said. What Professor Mensah said was that the president has said he will not assent to the bill. And that compromises Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's position. I'm saying that the president hasn't said that.
Okay, all right.
What the president has, the bill itself hasn't even come to him. And as it stands now, there's a court case at the Supreme Court, for which reason we need to wait for the judiciary to clear that before we even have that conversation.
Okay, so I'll also take you on. I'll also take you on the wording. You say the bill hasn't come to him, but 3 times the Clerk of Parliament has tried to transmit that bill. And now he's even been forced to write to the presidency saying that as and when you're ready, let me know, and then I'll transmit the bill to you. But just 2 quick points, and then we'll continue with the conversation from the other side. You made mention...
Don't move on from there. That supports the fact that the bill hasn't gotten to the president yet. It supports it. So indeed, the bill hasn't reached the president.
How does something get to you when you reject it?
So it hasn't gotten to you. He hasn't gotten to him. That is the point. That.
But his office wrote to the parliament's, parliament's clerk saying not to transmit.
Has the bill reached the president?
These are technicalities. I mean, I don't see why we are even splitting hairs over this.
He hasn't received the bill.
Okay.
He hasn't received the bill.
All right. I'll come back to you, Dennis Miracles Abwaje. Let's also bring into the conversation Most Reverend Dr. Paul K. Boafo, Presiding Bishop, Methodist Church of Ghana. Thank you so much, Doc, for joining the conversation. Your initial thoughts. I mean, I've heard you speak on LGBTQ in the past. Where do you feel we are now? How do you feel about this continuous tussle between the executive and the legislature vis-a-vis what Dr. Bawumia has now said?
Right. Thank you very much. And let me say a very good morning to the panelists there and your cherished listeners this morning. When we look at what is happening now, we can look at it from where we all started with this debate, and thank God coming this far from Parliament, Parliament speaking the voice of Ghanaians, and then where we are, we think that as Christians, that is the voice of the people. And Parliament representing all of us has spoken the voice of the people. Now, when it comes to the assent from the President, we know that at the point, but the last time I checked, the bill has not been sent. And then we got the information that the letter that was sent to Parliament, that the bill should not be sent because there was something at the Supreme Court. So as at now, I cannot tell whether it has been sent or not. But whatever...
There was an attempt on 3 occasions to transmit the bill to the President for his assent. It was rebuffed. The secretary to the President, Nana Asante-Bediatu, wrote to that effect, directing, and some felt that was disrespectful, directing the Clerk of Parliament not to attempt to doing that.
For me, I would say that, fine, there is something with the court. The President is right when something is before the Supreme Court. We have to listen to the Supreme Court. But the bottom line is that Parliament representing Ghanaians, that is the point. Parliament representing Ghanaians, because we all sent our views, our proposals, we spoke to the parliamentary proceedings, we were called, we gave our opinions and all that. And those people we have put in place to bring our law into line, they have spoken. So for that one, I am very, very sure that the bill, when it is sent to the President, he will assent to it. That is the point I am so holding on to. And Christians, Muslims, traditional rulers, we are all on one line saying that this is the point and this is the way we want to go.
Reverend, let me continue in that trail of thought. Do you believe that religion should influence... Ghana is a cosmopolitan country. There are diverse people living in this country. Do you believe that religious beliefs should influence a political decision like LGBTQ+?
Oh, sorry, I have been a very nice place. Can you come again?
Right. I was asking that you're saying that Christians, Muslims, traditionalists are all aligned against this practice of LGBTQ. Now, I'm saying that Ghana is a cosmopolitan country. There are diverse people from various religious backgrounds and traditional backgrounds in this country. Do you believe that religious beliefs should influence a political decision like this anti-LGBTQ+ bill?
No, but you see, we are talking about our identity. We are talking about who we are as Ghanaians. Barring all that you talk about relating, our values from the very beginning, from our fathers and mothers, indicate that we are not in for such acts. You see, we are not in for such acts because it is hitting at the root of the very society we want to protect. It is hitting, it is like an act at the root of the tree. And Ghana as a nation, Ghana or Ghanaians as unique people, we are saying that these are our values. This is what identifies us. So even if we take away the religious aspect, this is the mindset of Ghanaians. Yes, we can have people with different opinions. They are accepted. Let me make this point very clear, that Christians, as we are supporting this bill, we are saying we are not against the people who are into it, but we are against the act. We are against the act. God loves these people, and that is why we are saying that, look, let us not promote this, but the people, as they get themselves involved in it, we will show them our love, we would guide and protect them, we will bring them to know what identifies us, what makes us who we are as Ghanaians.
Doc, I have a quick follow-up. You see, you make it very clear that if the parliamentarians represent us, then it is clear that they're posturing, though I feel, personally, that some of them may have gone down that road. You remember when the Speaker of Parliament said, if you're against it or anything, stand up. No one dared because of the political consequences, I feel, they could have suffered. But let's move away from that. If it were that clear-cut, don't you think the president would have assented to the bill now? In the case of the e-levy, there were 2 cases in court, I think by Oliver Barker Vomawo and the minority side. The president went ahead and signed the bill. Why is this different? Why?
Well, I think we take every case on its own merit and we determine on its own merit. You know, yes, we had a long debate on the e-levy. At the end of the day, this was a government policy. The e-levy was a government policy. And so if the parliament had passed it, then the government or whoever was in charge had the upper hand to say that, look, parliament has decided. But this one is on a different note. We should understand that it's not something that is coming from government per se. It is coming from some individual, but it has gained the support of parliament, gained the support of Ghanaians, gained the support of the religious bodies, gained the support of the nook and cranny of the people of the state.
Right.
And so, if there is a counter, then I think yes, it is right for the government to say yes, this is something in court, and the courts are here with us. They are going to give us the interpretation, and they are going to tell us what they also say. And I believe that they are all Ghanaians. They are all Ghanaians. We don't want to tread into that legal aspect because we don't want to be charged for contempt and all that.
Right.
But we are saying that Ghanaians have spoken. Parliament speaking on behalf of Ghanaians and legislators, they are our legislators. And they are saying that this is the law. They have looked at it thoroughly. And that is why for the church and other faith-based organizations, we say that this is the way we have to go.
All right. Reverend, please hold for me. Let me come back to Professor Kobby Mensah. Professor Kobby, it's an election year, so I like to draw some connection between this stance by Dr. Bawumia and, December polls. Do you think that his declaration or his stance is likely to attract or alienate certain voter demographics?
All right, thank you very much. But before that, let me try to respond to Dennis on an issue that he said, because obviously he's in the business of political communication, and so I need to actually clarify some point. Sometimes I feel like my students are listening, so I have to be very clear so that they know. He was asking what was the deadline, who set the deadline. Dennis, in political communication, when we talk about public discourse, the deadline is the period of intensity. When we're having a conversation, there are issues that actually come up. They are revolving, they're dynamic. So when the period of intensity actually doused, that's when we say that there's a deadline. Remember, there's a public opinion and there's a private opinion. You may have a private opinion. That cannot be promoted as public opinion. The public decides what they are interested in discussing, promoted by the media, promoted by so many other interests, including your own political party. But of course, people have moved on from that conversation. As I told you, we are now discussing performance tracker. So certainly he's late by what we know as public, opinion. Secondly, he talked about his party's position. Clearly, everybody knows that MPP is a conservative party. But of course, party values and party positions are not static. They are not dynamic, especially when it's in government. When a party is in government, they get conflicted by the pragmatic policy positions as a result of public forces. And so, yes, you may have a political value that actually do not promote LGBTQ. When you're in government, you face certain pressures that would actually make you, conflict your own values and be in a dilemma. So certainly it is not surprising that MPP is in dilemma because obviously there is a certain, foreign pressures on you, and I can understand that. When you're in a position, it's easier for you to state your position, for you to state your values. But when you're in government, it's different. Now, let me come to the issue of the campaign on the elections. I'm not sure that the LGBTQ will be dominant in the campaign conversations. Why? Because the economy is in a very sad state and people are preoccupied with their daily lives. And so it becomes difficult for issues like this to be at the front burner of the political conversation during the election period. Unless, of course, there are issues that will actually promote them. For example, if the president is saying he's not assenting, for example, because of a legal case, and that issue is actually mined by the media, by other stakeholders. And then, of course, there's a certain angle of IMF money, whether it's coming in or not, and it ties in with the economic issue. Then, of course, the LGBTQI may become part of the key conversations in the campaign and might actually influence people's opinions or people's voter choices. But I don't really foresee it becoming a central point because of the number one issue, which is the economy.
You've made a point, though, that the vice president is late. You've spoken about that point of crucial reaction. Do you feel, since he is, if you look at it, because even the president, when he was communicating to the Anglican Church some time back, made a certain position known. The last person, most relevant person down the line is the vice president, who is now speaking. Do you feel there could be consequences for that? Though you feel it's not a major issue, politically, voting-wise, do you feel there could be consequences?
It could be if the position can mine it. One, he did this, all right, and that actually speaks to his judgment. I mean, I have made a point that in the geopolitical system, you have very heavy weight. You have Vladimir Putin. On the other side, you have the American president on the other side. There are top issues that have to be discussed, that have to be talked about. We have Israel-Gaza region, and you have a vice president who is attempting to become president. That did this on the key issues. In the key moment, he's not able to actually make judgment. I remember very well in 2008 when Obama and Hillary were actually contested. Hillary did an ad and said, at 2 a.m. when your generals are not around you and you're called that Mr. President, America is on fire, what will be your response? And that exactly is the moment Bawumia failed to capitalize on. In the heat of the moment, when the issues are hot burning and we're actually talking about it, can he stand the pressures of Vladimir Putin? Can he stand the pressures of, for example, the American president, whoever is there? Can he stand the egos of Israel, etc.? You do not have the character to do that. And he says that I am against the vice president. I'm not against the vice president. In fact, I wrote about the vice president emergence when he was in court, and I was absolutely in awe of him. But I've been so disappointed that when it comes to key issues that demand national character, national action, that demand political leadership, he shied away from that. And that's what I criticize. I'm not against it.
Key issues apart from LGBTQ, which other key issue would you make mention of that he shied away from?
Run away from the economics. I mean, he doesn't talk about economic issues anymore. Doomsday, have you heard the vice president talk about Doomsday?
He says the economy is also hinged on digitization and digitalization. Have you heard him speak about that?
Benjamin, digitization is operational level. It's not strategic. I'm telling you. I can even do that because the frameworks are there. If you go to Silicon Valley, you have templates for digitalization. You can leave it to whoever sector minister is to actually implement that. The key issues are what we are talking about. Geopolitical issues and economic issues. He shied away from them because there are powerful people in the LGBTQ that perhaps he's not able to confront. And that's why he shied away from it. So at the moment when we need judgment, when we need character, when we need leadership, he's failed.
All right, Prof, let me quickly bring in Miracles, and Sweetie will also bring in Doc as well. So on the back of what Professor Mensah has said, right, I have a bit of a struggle. You made mention of the fact that yours is a conservative party. Across the world, whether it's the UK, the US, conservatives act in a certain way, even the Republicans to a certain extent. But I'm trying to look at actions speaking louder than words. I have listened over time to the Attorney General, Godfrey Dame, and some of his proposals and even advice on how to deal with this LGBTQ thing. The Majority Leader, Alexander Afenyo-Markin, then the president, and then the reaction to the bill. I'm trying to put that side by side with what the VP is now saying, and I have a bit of a struggle. How do you connect the dots, Dennis?
So I still feel that the professor's theories are completely moot. And again, they are not...
Dennis, I'm sorry. Your connection is a little, so just speak up a little for us. So
Can you hear me now?
Yes, better.
I'm saying that I still feel that the professor's theories are completely moot, and it's simply because you're not coming from objective perspective. So the bill was presented in Parliament somewhere in 2021. Now the president spoke on his position on LGBTQI in 2021. 3 years down the line, when the conversation around this bill and LGBTQI has gone on, you have his friend, so Mahama, his candidate, speaking on it in January 2024. And he thinks that all of a sudden, because Mahama speaks about it 3 years later in January 2024, once Mahama speaks, the deadline is up, and that Dr. Bawumia speaks in April. And because Mahama spoke in January, 3 years after the introduction of the bill, and 3 years after Nana Akufo-Addo spoke, the deadline has come. It wasn't deadline after Nana spoke, but it became deadline 3 years later after John Mahama spoke.
I'm just curious. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just curious. What exactly did President Akufo-Addo say in 2021? Just remind us.
President Akufo-Addo was emphatic. He said that there is no way he is going to have same-sex marriage and LGBTQI issues promoted under his government. That's exactly what he said. And he said it in 2021.
I see.
That was the time when the bill had also been introduced in Parliament. 3 years after, you have his friend John Mahama speaking in January 2024. After the issues have been raging on, then his candidate speaks. Immediately his friend speaks. Then there is deadline. That's laughable. I keep telling you that's laughable. Listen, I'm a marketer too. I'm a chartered marketer. I understand communication. There is no lateness in bringing up an issue. This morning, are we not discussing LGBT across the country? Check all the front pages. Check all the morning shows. Check all the news portals. Since yesterday, LGBTQI is being discussed. Which professor says that it is late? Which professor says that the issue is buried? Which professor says that that issue is gone? Which level 100 students will even believe in this theory? So it's completely moot, and I understand. It is being said that way by the professor because he can never be objective when it comes to Dr. Mahmoud. And clearly that's affecting his own proper way of...
Is it possible for you to attack the ideas without attacking the person?
But he's attacking the vice president. If you say, that is his position. What idea has he espoused? Every single thing he said is about the vice president being late, the vice president not having principles. How is that an idea? So how are you saying I'm attacking him? I'm attacking his principles. The same way he thinks is attacking the vice president. Why didn't you question him on that? The vice president is saying that he, as a vice president, because of his beliefs in the social values and cultural values of this country, because of his beliefs in his religion, because of his knowledge that majority of Ghanaians, social values, cultural values, religious principles do not support LGBTQI, his position is that it is a no for him as a person, as a vice president, and as a president come 2025. And then the professor says that that position is late. How is that late?
Okay, so to conclude my thoughts with you on this matter, I do also remember, since you referenced the president, when he had that interview and also made mention of the fact that, on these issues, eventually the people will have to decide and that it is bound to happen. You remember that as well. So maybe some people will say that it wasn't so clear what the positioning of the president was, especially putting that side by side with, the late President Mills, for example. But I'd just like to find out as we move on.
Do you remember John Mahama's position on an interview outside Ghana when he also said that he believes that gay sex rights must be protected and that because some of these people are attacked, they keep hiding and doing these things in secrecy and that their rights also need to be protected. How do you put that side by side what he said in January 2024? You remember that one too?
Anyway, let's move the conversation forward. I'd just like to find out from you, Dr. Boafo believes, and I'm moving forward from that question not because I did hear something about human rights. I don't know whether the wording is exactly what you say, which is why I'm avoiding it. But Dr. Boafo believes that the president will, I like his conviction, will sign the bill. You've spoken about the MPP being a conservative party. Is that your understanding as well, that the president will sign the bill? Because that's the conviction of Dr. Boafo.
The president has never said anywhere that he will not sign the bill. He hasn't received the bill. And so at this point, it is when the president receives the bill and then...
Okay, so let me clarify. Dr. Boafo says when it gets to him, he will sign it. Is that...
I believe so too.
Okay, all right.
I believe so too.
Right.
But he hasn't received the bill.
But let me go to Reverend now, before I even take your final thoughts on this matter. Do you believe that... do you agree with the assertions of Professor Kobby Mensah that this LGBTQ might not be pivotal in the electioneering activities or campaign activities leading to the presidential elections? Do you believe that if it's still an impasse come December 2024, Christians, I'm also saying this because some political parties like Alan Chomanteng and the rest are saying that Christians should vote for Christian leaders. So we know that religion does play a role in our political affairs. Do you think that come December 2024, if this bill is still not signed into law, it would affect the campaigns of all these political parties, especially the NPP?
The issue is about the law. Ghanaians' concern is about LGBTQI. People have raised concerns with the law. The fact that the bill has been passed doesn't mean that the bill can be assented in its whole sense as it is. If people have concerns about aspects of the law...
No, my question was actually to the Reverend, but you finish and then I can go back to Reverend.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know. I'm sorry.
No, but finish your trail of thoughts.
I don't think anybody has an issue with a law that is controlling LGBTQI practices. What I have heard, a lot of people see as certain aspects of the law. And I have always held the view that people should also be allowed to raise concerns about certain aspects of the law, so that by the time the law comes out, it is one that is strong and solid enough to be able to guide us as a country. And I think nobody should be guided in that space. Again, I am of the view that people have various reasons why they vote. And so it would be completely erroneous for anybody to think that LGBTQI would not also play a part in some people's decision as to who they vote for come 2024. That should also be established. And it's not, LGBTQI is only about religion. It's only about Christianity, Islam, and all of that. There are people who are atheists that are opposed to LGBTQI. There are Christians who support LGBTQI. There are Muslims who support LGBTQI. And so it's not just about religion. It is about people's opposition to a practice. And I'm of the view that there may be some people who would use LGBTQI as a basis to cast their vote. And their decision is based on which leader they trust, believe, is consistent, and hasn't contradicted himself when it comes to his position on the LGBTQI. It's not about who spoke first. It's about what you said previously and what you are saying now, and how it contradicts your position when it comes to LGBTQI. Between Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and John Mahama has contradicted himself before on the LGBTQI matter. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia hasn't. He's been emphatic, he's been decisive, and he's been precise. He's against LGBTQI without any shade of grey, no ifs, no buts.
Did you follow Asiedu Nketiah's assertions that the president orchestrated the lawsuit himself to prevent him from assenting to the bill? How do you react to that? About controversy and who is trustworthy?
There's nothing to react to.
Right. Thank you, Miracles Awaje. But, Reverend, I was asking you if you think that this bill will play any pivotal role in election 2024 on deciding who to vote for. Reverend Paul Boafo, are you still with us? Okay.
Yes, I am on.
So,
Yes.
Kobby Mensah was saying that he doesn't think that it would actually play a pivotal role because people are more focused on the economy and other issues. But I'm asking if from where you sit as a Christian leader, do you think that this bill, if it's still an impasse, would affect how people vote come election 2024?
Sure. It will play a role. It will play a role, but it is not the only factor that will guide people in voting. Because as we speak now, parties are putting together their manifestos and they are coming out gradually spelling out the details of what they intend for Ghanaians. Now, after all these years of democratic dispensation, Ghanaians are now aware of what is good for us. And so, if we are talking about the values and what identifies us and what makes us unique as a people, and you want to destroy it, Ghanaians will not be happy with it. Especially Christians, we will not be happy with it because the sanctity of family is at stake, and we need to guard it. There are other factors that will also come into play: the economy, our finances, our social and all, employment, youth, education, health, and all that. We are not saying that it is just LGBTQ that is going to stand. There are other factors, but LGBTQ and how the party comes out very clear on it will also guide in people making their choice.
Okay. So, Dennis, this one is for you. I just
please. I have to leave now.
Yes.
Because I'm in a service.
Right, Rev.
Yes.
We're grateful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rev.
And I wish you well.
We wish you well too, and all the best with the service. And that is Most Reverend Dr. Paul K. Boafo, Presiding Bishop, Methodist Church of Ghana. Dennis, I just wanted to, because you see, sometimes we're very careful as media people when we're quoting. I heard you say some things, I wasn't too sure. That's why I didn't go according to it. But there's a My Joy Online story I want to refer you to from February 1st, 2013. When the former president was power, President Mahama declared stance homosexuality is criminal. I'd like you to read that story. And in fact, on the back of that, okay, in 2016, 17th March 2016, you said the former president hadn't been clear. There's a Guardian story there. Ghanaian president's visit to Scotland draws LGBT rights criticism. And per the story, an invitation to the president of Ghana to address MSPs, undermine the safety of the Scottish Parliament for members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community, according to opposition, because of his statements on LGBTQ. So if in 2013, that is what, 11 years ago, and these were some consequences for him in 2016, I don't know, but I just wanted to draw your attention to that as well. What are your final thoughts, Dennis? Do we have Dennis Miracles Abuaji on the line?
I think he left.
I'm here. Can you hear me? I'm here.
I can hear you now. Did you hear what I said?
Yes, I heard you. And I'm saying that I think you should use the same effort moving forward to go and dig up similar stories on Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia when Professor Kobby Mensah makes it falsehoods about him. And I like it that way. The point is, when Mahama spoke in 2013, was there a deadline? Did they end the conversation on LGBTQI? Did they end it there? Or it came back in 2021, and MPs went back to it. And then it came back again in 2024, and Mahama spoke on it again. What we have done has clearly gone back to wipe out that false theories that the professor was putting out, that the LGBTQI issue is buried, because Mahama had spoken on it in 2024. When he spoke on it in 2013, did they get buried? When he came back in 2014 to come and speak on it and speak about giving them their gay rights, they protecting their rights, did they get buried? So I think that use the same effort next time, like you said, as journalists, to make sure that you dig down some of these falsehoods. When you said that the president said he will not assent to the bill, you should have used the same energy to dig down and let him know that the president hasn't said anywhere that he will not assent to the bill. So thank you for bringing this up. And this goes to buttress the point that there is no deadline to an issue, because this is an issue that was discussed in 2013. Remember the Solomon, the Andrew Solomon saga, where the former president was found lying in bed. You know,
in fact, the My Joy Online story addresses exactly that. Mahama Yariga spoke to specifically that. That's why I'm referencing you to that story, if you take time to read it.
It wasn't a deadline then. So the professor's theory is completely flawed. There is no deadline to an issue. So he cannot wake up in April 2024 and impose a deadline on Ghanaians. The same way it didn't go dead in 2013, and the former president has to come back in 2024 to speak about it. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has spoken about it. If he comes back in 2028, during the election period for his second term, he will speak about it again. That theory is moot, it's flawed, it's false. It was a deliberate attempt by the professor to mislead the public, and I thank you for bringing this up to court.
Just before you go, I just wanted to find out, since you have the historical antecedents, had the vice president, just to clarify from you, had the vice president before this ever been this categorical, vehement on this matter? You may know better than I do, so I just want some clarity on that. Had he before this ever said anything?
Maybe when you finish, you should use the same energy. Maybe you should, the way you did for Mahama, do it for Bawumia.
No, I'm asking you. Maybe you are privy to information I don't have. I'm honestly trying to find out.
You did it for Bawumia, Mahama, do it for Bawumia too.
Okay, so I take it that since you don't have a response, then I take it that there was none.
Why are you not doing it for Bawumia? You just did it for Mahama. Why are you not doing it for Bawumia?
Thank you very much, Dennis Miracles Abuaje.
Bawumia has said this severally before now. Why didn't you do it for him?
All right. All right. Thank you, Dennis Miracles Abuaje, for having joined the conversation. Interesting one. Huh?
Yeah, we have to take final thoughts from Professor Kobby Mensah. Is he still with us? Professor Kobby Mensah?
Yeah.
Yes, your final words before we go.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, obviously, Dennis's work, part of it is spin doctrine, and so I'm not surprised by that. I think that if he wants to be in a very insightful and authentic to the Ghanaian people and very much respectful to the Ghanaian people, he needs to introduce ethics in his communication because obviously we spend time, our value to listen to you as a political communicator speaking on behalf of a campaign. And so your values actually endorses your campaigns, if you actually demonstrate that. And so I have no qualms at all that he would actually do that because part of it is spin doctrine. But it has to be said that, the political leaders must really be on time on conversations. When the public is engaged in a particular conversation, we want to hear your voice. Of course, it's strategic and tactical, for you to dither because obviously he wants to look at positions of his boss. Whether he could persuade him or not, I don't know. Whether he's tried to do that, I'm not sure. But when the public expects you to take a position, we want you to speak to them because we have to see our leaders being able to match up to the geopolitical leaders. And as I said, there are top, world issues. There are top geopolitical issues that demands that our leaders are ready to speak to those issues. And currently, the kind of characteristics or the kind of images that we are seeing from our government or the current administration doesn't give us that particular confidence. And I think that's the submission I would give to this.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Kobby Mensah, who is the political marketer. We also spoke to Dennis Miracles Abuaje, who is the communications director for Dr. Bawumia's campaign team, and then Reverend Dr. Boafo, presiding leader for the Methodist Church of Ghana. But did he say we should use the same energy to do it?
Well,
if he cannot speak to us from Dr. Bawumia's campaign team and tell us how vocal he has been.
So I just took the time because I knew. You see, his wording of what the former president had said. I remember human rights, but he made mention of gay sex. So I had to be careful. So I went back to dig. And even as far back as 2013, and I'm sure there were others before, because the former president, I'm talking of Atta Mills' stance, was pretty clear. And following that, I knew former President Mahama had also spoken. So I just had to check, and I found 2013, okay, on the back of which, interestingly, even in 2016, he was being hounded when he went to the Scottish Parliament. I remember that issue, that his utterances on LGBTQ were XYZ.
It was all over the place.
So for Dennis to say that he was speaking about it in 2023 was interesting for me, but it's okay if it's politics. But then I wanted to find out from him because he suggests that the vice president has spoken about LGBTQ. I don't recall, so I had to check, and I don't find anything. So I asked him whether he could tell us, but he was telling me to go and check on that as well. So I guess we can form our own opinions, draw the lines where we'll draw them.
But it's been an interesting conversation. Benjamin.
Anyway, so there's still a lot more to come. We're going to be talking about transport fares, among other matters. That issue is becoming.
This is the third time this
problematic.
That there's been a threat resolved, and now the drivers are completely ignoring both GPRTU and the government. They're just increasing the prices, and they're doing what works best for them. But that's coming up next on our conversations here on the AM show. Stay with us.